All right. All right. Edit note. This is an edit note for Debbie. All right. Debbie, I'm adding this to the start of the audio file to make sure you hear it, but please remember to delete it before you start making the final edits, okay? Oh god. I'm not sure which hospital you ended up in, but if it's the same one as me, then I'm really sorry you gotta drink this crappy hospital water. It tastes like pennies. Anyway, once you're well enough to do your job again, which hopefully happens before this episode needs to drop on Monday, but hey, no rush. I need you to make a lot of edits to the file. Like a lot, okay? There's no compassion anymore, Debbie, I swear to God. Sandra's in and out of the ER with a dose of antibiotics, and they're acting like I ruined her whole life just because she had to miss the Emmys. Meanwhile, you and me are the ones who ended up bedridden in this barely functional crap house. Ow. So, anyway, to quiet down the media storm, I'm gonna need you to cut everything involving the kids and also Sandra and Abraham and also every time you and I talked off mic. So, the episode is gonna end up roughly being like 2 minutes altogether, but hey, at least, we're gonna meet our advertising obligations, so I'm definitely about to fall back asleep against my will. But don't worry, Debbie. I'm gonna try to find a way out of here in the next couple of days before they realize my insurance only covers broken arm bones. Okay? I hope you're feeling better, and I also hope that you managed to pack everything up before the ambulance arrived because those microphones were rentals. Okay? And remember, Debbie. Oh, Jean-Luc's so sleepy. Remember, Debbie, if you manage to make even one goddamn edit, please make sure this is the part you cut out, okay? All right, bye-bye. On today's episode, we say, "Oh, Canada," to Canada's own Sandra Oh. My friends keep telling me it's time for me to move on since Sammy left me, so consider this episode my open for business sign. The 100th listener of today's episode will win a Tupperware of leftover salad dressing I made for my 4th of July barbecue. Swing your partner by the knees, Venmo me $5, please. Yeehaw! It's time for Famous Podcast. Famous Podcast. It's a famous podcast. It's a very, very famous podcast. Man, I am a good composer. Welcome to Famous Podcast, where each guest is more famous than the last. I'm your host, Jean-Luc Bouchard, aka the Sweetheart Prince of New York. And as a pansexual man, I wholeheartedly reject binaries, but I'll make an exception on today's podcast for some black and white thinking, because we have the star of Grey's Anatomy, Sandra Oh. My producer Debbie said I had to work harder on my setups, so how's that for barely making an effort, Debbie? Whatever. Debbie's insolence aside, I am thrilled to have Miss O on the show. I stayed up all night so I could pore over Sandra's Wikipedia page for untapped veins of interview gold, and it was definitely worth putting everyone at risk when I drove to work this morning. I have a big piece of paper with the words "family?" written at the top, so I think we all know what's coming. Fans of the podcast may be wondering where we're recording this week's episode after losing our studio space following last week's tragedy with Psy. Rest in peace. But also, I did warn you and try to stop you. But fear not, friends, because I've tapped into my scrappy underdog spirit and managed to convince my cousin Abraham to let us section off a corner of his office as a temporary studio. And if you're worried about the sounds of staplers and printers distracting you during this recording, don't worry, it's not that kind of office. Abraham is a pediatrician, and he's letting us use his waiting room, which is a very kind gesture, even though today seems to be an unusually busy day for New York's sickest children. Thankfully, me and Debbie taped a couple fitted sheets from the ceiling to lend us some privacy. And while she waits to be brought on air, Sandra Oh is sitting comfortably on the other side of the curtain next to a kid with a raging case of strep throat. But before we press Sandra about the time she received the key to the city of Ottawa, we're going to turn the lock and open the door to my shattered inner psyche. If you follow me on social media or have seen me in real life over the past couple of weeks, then you know that I'm a fragile husk of a man recovering from a heartbreak that would kill a weaker person. My boyfriend Sammy left me for a much handsomer, much richer, but only 2 months younger man named Richard Vakil. I have never met Richard and know nothing of his life or his personal struggles, but believe me when I say that I hope he gets Lyme disease, and catches fire, and falls onto the subway tracks, and gets hit by a train, and wakes up in hell where the devil lives, and... No, Debbie, I'm good, really. Seriously, this is just a joke for the audience. Well, don't look through my diary, please. Those were just doodles, okay? They were just doodles, folks. Anyway, after a solid couple weeks of going insane with loneliness, I've decided I'm ready to put myself back on the market. I downloaded all the terrible dating apps we're forced to use nowadays and swiped right for 10 straight hours. And I haven't had a single match yet, so in honor of this, I've decided to announce a brand new and incredibly short segment on famous podcasts that I like to call No One Loves Me. No one loves me. No one loves me. No one loves me. That's it. That's the whole segment. I had nothing else planned. But fear not, because No One Loves Me transitions seamlessly into a second brand new segment. 2 new segments back to back for the price of one, folks. You can't make this up. I am delighted to introduce a sister segment to the much beloved Celebrity Beef segment from episode 3. Because I am finally a bachelor once again, and no longer tethered down by Sammy and his beautiful, kind soul, I don't have to hide all the fun and flirty relationships I aspire to have with my fellow celebrities. And so, without further ado, I introduce you to Celebrity Crush. 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 Celebrity Crush. Butterfly kisses on Hollywood Hills. My dying wish is you feel what I feel. Fame and riches, who could ask for more? My dating sitch is coming up short, so it's time to gush that I harbor a celebrity crush. Welcome to Celebrity Crush, the sister segment of Celebrity Beef, where I reveal my biggest celebrity crushes in the hopes that they are fans of the show and feel the same way, and we get married by next year. Today's celebrity crush is a statistics superstar, a poker-playing force of nature, a writer of rare ability, and someone who doesn't follow me back on Twitter yet, the editor-in-chief of 538.com, Nate Silver. I'm having no trouble distinguishing the signal from the noise of this celebrity crush, and trust me when I say that me and Nate go way, way back. Long ago, when Nate was a fresh-faced statistics boy predicting elections on primetime TV, I was a humble young calculator caddy, carrying his big bag of Texas Instruments from newsroom to newsroom. I never had the nerve to tell Nate how I felt, but those were some of the best 2 weeks of my life. It was a real Romeo and Juliet situation, in the sense that one of us was much older than the other. Now that I'm well established and much adored in my own right, I've decided it's finally time to rekindle that long-lost spark and reach back out to Nate. I've sent him hundreds of emails recently asking him to get a burrito with me, but unfortunately, he must be doing one of those tech detoxes at the moment. It'll probably be easier to just send him an enormous handwritten letter explaining how we'd be the perfect team of brains and brawn, and then also whatever I bring to the table. My Bayesian prior is that we'll end up happily ever after in some swank Upper West Side apartment entirely supported by his salary as a famous nerd. Once I finish this bar graph labeled Emotions, I'll send it off and let you know how it goes. Well, folks, before my cousin Abraham steps back into the waiting room and interrupts our recording by shouting some child's name, let's jump right into our celebrity interview. Allow me to introduce the wonderful, unimitatable Sandra Oh. Sandra, how are you? Okay, well, you working on any big projects right now? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Debbie, what's going on? Oh dear. Hold on. Folks, I assure you that Sandra is on the mic, but apparently an unexpected case of strep throat has left her voiceless, preventing her from making a peep loud enough for these cheap British microphones to pick up. It just stinks that you caught this bug somewhere on the way to the interview, because now... Please, Sandra, don't strain yourself. Just nod your head if you agree that you definitely arrived at this interview already sick.
No.
I'll take that as a yes. Debbie, let's put her back into the waiting room for now while you brainstorm a solution. You'll be fine, Sandra, don't worry. They got some great magazines out there from 2015. Okay, folks, while Debbie Googles how to cure strep throat, let's soldier on. Remember, when push comes to shove, the tough get pushing. Wait, that's not right. Anyway, it's time for listener questions. Are you overwhelmed and overloaded, devoid of stronger stuff? Life is tough, meaning it's too much, but my advice is always just enough. Welcome to Listener Questions, the landmark segment of Famous Podcast where I help fix your problems for free. So if your life is sad and your brain is bad, send me your questions and I might just answer them on the show. Today's listener question comes from Cheryl in Pittsburgh.
Hi, Famous Podcast. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are. What do you think is more important in a job, money or flexibility?
Thank you for wondering what my thoughts are, Cheryl in Pittsburgh. You raise an interesting point. Is it always better to angle for a higher salary or for flexible working hours and the chance to work from home? As someone who currently lacks all of the above, I have strong opinions on the matter, so I'm wheeling out the piano to lay out my clear favorite, in the key of B flat. Money can't buy you love, I guess, but it can buy you any pet. Like cats and dogs and snakes and dogs and big large dogs and tiny dogs. The only thing you cannot buy is love, which means I'll die alone. But you can somehow just buy dogs and shove them in your home. Money can't buy you happiness, but it can buy you any pet. Like mice and dogs and ferrets and dogs and golden retrievers and beagles and sneakers. The only thing you cannot buy is love, which means I'm screwed for life. But you can buy a real nice dog and pretend it is your wife.
Let's break it down.
You could work from home if you want to be a slob. Or you could take the money that you make from your job and go and buy a dog and teach that dog to lie in your bed like it's your wife. That's the goddamn life. Money can't fix my home mess, but it can buy you any pet. Like dachshunds and poodles and collies and shih tzus, and if you're lucky, Siberian huskies. The only thing you cannot buy is love, which is why I'm such a jerk. But you can buy 100 dogs, and that's better than flexible work. I hope that answers your question, Cheryl. I really don't think I could have been any clearer. And speaking of which, I'd love to get some clarity from our celebrity guest on the handwritten notes she's passing me on little scraps of magazine paper. Sandra, your handwriting is terrible. What does this say? You want to go to a popsicle? Sandra, that doesn't make any sense.
No.
You need to see a proctor? I would have figured your test-taking days were long behind you, but hey, I guess we never stop learning, right? Debbie, go find Sandra some SAT prep books. While Sandra's busy pushing the virus from her body with a flood of newly learned vocabulary, let's push the debt from my net worth with a flood of newly minted cash. That's right, it's time for an ad.
Time for an ad, so give me a beat. Yes, it's time for an ad, cause I need to eat. Oh, it's time for an ad to pay for the show. Yes, it's time for an ad, cause I need the dough.
Today's episode of Famous Podcast is brought to you by Facebook. And just to be clear, that's Facebook. Phase book. Facebook is a brand new social media platform whose sole purpose is to connect like-minded individuals going through an incredibly rough phase in their lives. Are you a teenage girl who cut off all her hair and dyed her tongue black? Are you a middle-aged divorced man who spent his life savings on a motorcycle he's afraid to drive? Then head over to Facebook so you can post some Minions memes about how much you hate Mondays. Facebook and its CEO, famous whiz kid Mort Snackerberg, welcome you to try a free 1-month trial of the app by using the promo code FacebookNotFacebook at checkout. Snackerberg created Facebook while he was still a creepy student barely attending classes at Harvard, and he was driven by a mission to build a community around unrepenting losers going through something messy. Not sure if you qualify to join Facebook? Make sure you check out the FAQ section of the app, which provides a full list of viable phases you could be going through. Examples include, you've burnt out at work and now you're just phoning it in until you get fired. You've dated 4 people in a row who are exactly the same and you don't like any of them, but you can't stop. You've started wearing baseball caps everywhere. You're regularly crying on public transport. And you're eating at Subway for every single meal. Facebook is a proud sponsor of Famous Podcast, and I am a proud user of Facebook, which I joined during my running out in front of cars trying to get hit so I can sue for $1 million phase. Well, folks, it's time to phase back into our celebrity interview with Sandra Oh, who is currently busy flagging down a nurse for reasons I can't understand. Wow, she's really pushing kids out of the way to get up front. Sandra, come back. We can get you an ACT book if you're more comfortable with their grading system. Sandra? Good news, folks. My cousin Abraham has come back out into the waiting room just in time to see Sandra do her hilarious impression of someone writhing on the ground in agony. She truly can do it all, folks. Wow. Still going. And Abe's getting in on the bit too. Hey, it runs in the family. That's great. And the nurses. Wow, this is a real whole situation now. Wow, those kids are really forming a circle, huh? Wow. Debbie, start packing up. Debbie, start packing up right now. Right now. Hey, folks, you know I hate to leave an episode early, but I really... Jesus! Debbie, get the kids away from me! Oh my god, that one definitely doesn't have strep throat. Holy moly! Don't be afraid to push them, just get them out to the other side of the curtain. I'm gonna start grabbing the mics and the cables and stuff, okay? And for the love of God, cover your mouth. Alright, again, sorry about this, folks. You know, it's a little hard to describe over an audio medium just how many kids are trying to get through the curtain right now, but... Debbie, one of them touched me! Why are there so many of them now? Where are the parents? Did they die? No, it's not gonna be okay. Look at Sandra! She's got buffalo sauce coming out of her pores! Just start jumping over kids, Debbie, and meet me in the van. We are leaving in 20 seconds, okay? And I am not waiting around. Folks, you know you mean the world to me, but I gotta find a bottle of Purell to drink ASAP. I'll see you right next. Let go of me. You let go of me right now. I will see you next week right here on Famous Podcast. Bye-bye. Get off of me. God, why are all their hands so sticky? Are they coming out of the woodwork? I don't remember there being this many kids. Abe! Abe, I'm sorry about the mess, okay? We'll come back after hours to clean up if we're still alive. Oh man, I'm not feeling so good. Debbie, don't leave without me. I was lying about the van. There's no van.